Hey guys, I'm Jessie and today we are going to talk about all my feelings about the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. We're gonna start off with a spoiler-free review. I am going to go over my pros and my cons, and you can decide if you want to read it or not, and then we will go into the spoiler section. Later in the video, I will let you know when that happens, when I'm going to be spoiling things, when I'm just going to be chit-chatting about all the spoilers, so you can click off if you don't want spoilers, or you can stick around if you want to talk all the spoilery details. But let's jump into my thoughts, spoiler-free, on the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. Now, this book has had some real mixed reviews. A lot of people have not been impressed. And a lot of people who I have similar reading tastes to have not been impressed and have given this a poor review. And while I see their points, and this was not by any means a perfect book, I really enjoyed myself. I enjoyed the book, I enjoyed the world, I enjoyed the writing. I had a really good time with Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. I gave it 4 stars. Like, I read it in a couple days, I gave it to a friend and she is now reading it, and then I'm gonna give it to another friend and then she's gonna read it. I liked it. I like Suzanne Collins' writing style. I like being back in the Hunger Games world. I like seeing where it all began. So if you're like me, then maybe you will like this book, even though it had some pretty negative reviews right off the bat. If you don't know, Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes is basically Snow's origin story. The entire book is told from Snow's point of view when he is a young teenager, basically like a senior in high school kind of vibe. And he actually gets to be a mentor in the 10th annual Hunger Games, where he is selected to be a mentor to a District 12 girl tribute. Y'all, that just sounds like it's gonna be great, right? Like, it makes so much sense if you've read the original stories. So we're gonna jump in and go with my pros and cons of what I liked, what I didn't like, what, I think is good, what I think could be improved upon. And you can kind of make up your mind on if you want to read it or not. For me, a pro to this book was that Snow remained morally gray on the darker side of the spectrum the entire book. There was no point at which I loved him. And that's a good thing. Like, I don't want to really love Coriolanus Snow. That might be the only time you hear me say his name in this wrap up, because the entire life of me, I thought that his name was Cornelius, and it's not. It's Coriolanus. Corio for his friends, but we're just gonna stick with Snow. But it's not a villain origin story where it's like this one event happened and he went from like good to evil, which is what I don't like with a villain origin story. He kind of starts out pretty like a shitty person and continues to become more of a shitty person throughout the entire book. And those of us who have read the original Hunger Games trilogy know what he ends up being, so it's kind of cool seeing him as a younger adult and knowing what he's gonna be. And it's like, we know he's going to go full psycho. We just know it. But seeing the glimmers of it in his youth and like those little telltale signs that he's maybe not really a good person really makes it a fun and interesting read for me. Some people complained that like they didn't see enough evil from him, but I don't understand that because I saw so much evil from him. Even in his selfless acts, he was selfish. He had a very narcissistic personality, and it was kind of underplayed, but I love how it was shown as like that's just him. He just cares about himself, and even when he's trying to help his tribute, it has nothing to do with helping his tribute and everything to do with making himself look good. Narcissist. But we're going to talk about a con now because I'm going to go back and forth. There are some cons to this book. One of the cons that I want to talk about is it's not an action-packed book. And this was okay for me, but this might be a con for a lot of people, and it's something that I've seen people complain about. It's not an action-packed book. It is a slow-paced political intrigue story. Yeah. Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes is not action-packed. It is a slow political intrigue story, and I understand that not everybody loves that. Like, it doesn't have as much action as the original Hunger Games books, and that to me is fine, but to some people it was kind of a detriment because some people thought it moved very slow, and it does. It is a slow-paced book, but I personally like that because I like the inner workings of the politics in the world and seeing that. But I can understand people wanting it to move a little bit faster. Another like pro, in my opinion, was the nostalgia factor. Let's just be honest. There were so many little connections and hints to the originals. And I loved that. I loved seeing all the hints to what will be in the future and seeing how the games developed from this very primitive system into the huge spectacle that we know it becomes in like 65 years when we see Katniss and Peeta and everybody in their games, and seeing just how it goes from nothing and like people don't even watch it to this big massive technologically advanced thing that it becomes is really cool. Like, it's just to see that. I enjoyed it. I loved the nostalgia factor, like the little things, like the mention of a mockingjay or the hanging tree song, or just little things here and there that you're like, oh, it's nostalgia. Plain, pure, clear nostalgia factor. Another like kind of con, and this was kind of a con to me as well, was that it felt like there needs to be a sequel, and I don't think there's a sequel planned. Maybe Suzanne Collins is gonna write a sequel, but for me, like, the end felt like I needed more. It feels like we need a Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes Part 2. Like, I want more. And that kind of leaves me feeling like I'm not sure if this story is ended or if there's more to be told, because there definitely is more, you know, timeline between Snow at the end of this book and Snow becoming President Snow and the Hunger Games and all of that. There, you know, there's 65 years that we can go through. So I don't know if there's going to be a sequel or not, but I hope there is. So it's kind of like a gray area negative. Another positive, and it's weird because I know I said that it's a slow paced book, but it was an easy read and I read through it quickly, even though the pace of the story was slower. Like I said, I read it in a couple days because it's simplistic. It's easy to read and easy to understand, which I love about Suzanne Collins' writing style. So don't think I'm being negative when I say it's a simplistic style. I like a simplistic style. I don't tend to read flowery prose and very like grandiose writing. I like simple. I like easy to read, easy to comprehend, and that is what this gave me, and it was fabulous. My final like negative is probably like the biggest problem that I personally had with the book, and that is that I wish we had more than one perspective. Now, we get Snow's perspective the entire book. We see everything through Snow's eyes. It is painted through his lens, and it's really cool being in his head, but I really wish we would have had Lucy Gray's perspective and been able to be in the games with her, because we don't get that. We just get Snow watching her in the games. We don't get what she goes through, because there's like a big period of time where we don't even see her at all, and we don't know what happens. So I wish we'd gotten her perspective. And there's another character, Sejanus, maybe. I cannot pronounce his name, but you know who I'm talking about if you've read it. I wish we had his perspective, because he had probably the coolest origin backstory. His family is from District 2, but they managed to buy their way into the capital like right around the end of the war because they had a lot of money. So they're technically district, but since they're in the capital, they've like become capital. So he is actually a mentor as well, and he, being from District 2, is mentoring a District 2 tribute, and seeing him and his stark contrast to Snow, and the fact that like they're friends but they're not really friends. Like Snow knows they're not really friends, but Sejanus like thinks that they're really good friends. And it's just, I want to be in his head. I think that would be fabulous. So if they do another one, I would love to get multiple POVs, just because I think we could have gotten so much more out of this story with multiple POVs. And my final pro, we're gonna leave it on a pro. I already talked about like the nostalgia factor, but again, I just want to reiterate, I love seeing the evolution of the games. I'm a political intrigue reader. Like I love action, but I also love like the inner workings of things. So seeing the evolution of the games was a huge pro for me. Seeing how they just grow from this year, and like their like super simple beginnings up until this like huge like spectacle that they become. It's just so much fun. And learning that Snow had a lot to do with the creation of different parts of the game is really cool. Now, I don't know if Suzanne Collins had this story in her head when she wrote the original trilogy or not. She might have. She might have known about Lucy Gray and Sejanus and, you know, young Snow like this whole time. This might have just been an idea that was in her head the entire time, and she had given him this backstory. Or it might be completely new and she just came up with the fact that like, oh, this would make sense, and then this is why he doesn't like District 12, and this is why, you know, it could have been in retrospect, but I wish I knew. Like I wish we knew if Suzanne Collins like had this all planned out from the start. Which if she did, that would be really cool. Or if she kind of like went back and made the pieces fit based on that. But those are my pros and cons in my non-spoiler review of the Hunger Games Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. Like I said, I gave it 4 stars. I thought it was a super, super fun read. The nostalgia factor was probably what set it over the top for me. There's a couple cons, but honestly, if you are a Hunger Games fan, I recommend picking this up for sure. It was just a good time, and hopefully Suzanne Collins ends up giving us more. I would love to see the Haymitch story. I would love to see Phoenix Games. I would love to see more tributes games from before. Like, I just think that would be really fun. And I mean, it'll keep the bankroll coming because you know we all gonna buy it. Now we are moving into like my ramble, spoiler, chit chat that like really doesn't make sense because I'm just gonna ramble about like things that I want to talk about the book that I either loved or didn't make sense to me. So if you haven't read the book, just bye, I'll see you next time. But if you have read the book or you don't mind the spoilers and you want to just see my rambly thoughts, then just keep on watching. This book I enjoyed so much. But like I said earlier, like the one thing that like bothered me so bad was that I want to see more POVs. So Lucy Gray, I feel like we don't know enough about her motivations. Like, I want it to be in her head. Like, did she really love Snow, or was she using him? Or like, what happened when she was in the tunnels for like all this time that we couldn't see her in the games? Like, I need to know these things, and I feel like this is a lot of the complaints from people, is that there's a lot of things we didn't get to see. Like, these games were boring. I'm not even gonna lie. Like, the 10th annual Hunger Games was boring. It was not a spectacle. It was like boring kids killing each other. But I wanted to know what happened to her. And I wanted to know, does she really love Snow? And I want to know what happened to her at the end of the book, because she just like disappears. Like, she just disappears. And I need to know these things. And like theories, there's definite theories that I want to know. Like, Maud Ivory, is that Katniss's grandmother? Because I think it might be. Because like, it would make sense, because all the songs that like Katniss learned from her dad's family are in the Covey like playbook. Like the hanging tree, I loved that they put the hanging tree in this book, and it's like Lucy Gray wrote it, and it was so good. But oh my god, I need more information. Like, that's the one thing, is like I said, I need more. Like, the book ended so weird, and I need to know what happened to Lucy Gray. Like, that's all I want to know, is what happened to Lucy Gray Bard. Obviously, she figured out what happened, like that Snow was not a good human, and she was going to betray him. But like, what made her figure that out? Was it the fact that he said that he's killed 3 people, and she's like, but you've only killed 2? And he's like, oh, I mean, the old Snow is dead. Like, and she figured it out that quick, like, that's why I need her POV, because there's like little things that didn't quite make sense for me about her. But she was such a good character that like, I would read a whole book from her perspective. I would read this whole story from her perspective. Another thing we have to talk about, and this is kind of a positive, is Snow. I mean, some of the complaints that I keep hearing is that Snow was not psycho enough, and he wasn't evil enough. But to me, he was the perfect amount of psycho and evil, because he starts out as a narcissist and continues to just be more narcissistic. Like, even his kindness is selfishness. He's like, oh, I love Lucy Gray and I'm gonna help her win, but he really doesn't care about her. He cares about himself and his appearance, and how he's gonna get this scholarship if he wins the games, and how he's gonna look, and he cares about him and himself. And I honestly don't think he even ever loved Lucy Gray. He loved the power and the control that he had when she was in the games, and like, he was her mentor, and he had this level of control over her. But once she was back in the districts and like she was a victor and he still loved her, like he didn't have that same level of control. And that you could see it bothering him. Like she'd sing songs that she had written to perform, like that mentioned like her ex, and he'd flip shit. And it's like, all musicians do that. Like she's being paid to perform, like to sing a song, like stop. And it's like everything had to be about him. He never once truly cared about other people, not about Lucy Gray, not about his Capitol friends. Like he never truly cared about anyone, like only himself. And I think you really see that in a lot of his personality. And you see those twinges of evil in him and how it becomes. And I really appreciated that they didn't make him flat out just psycho, that they gave him shades of psycho, I guess. So, yes, I really enjoyed how we just gave him this personality of even his kindness is selfishness. And the final, like, spoilery thing I want to talk about is Sejanus. I am probably butchering that name, but I have a love-hate relationship with this character. He is the one that's from District 2, and then they like migrated to the Capitol because they have a lot of money, and he ended up mentoring a District 2 boy, and he is like the complete opposite of Snow. He is rich where Snow is poor. He is a kind soul, whereas Snow is a selfish bastard. And I just love that, seeing those opposing forces. And Sejanus really thought they were friends. He was like, you are my brother. You are, you know, my best friend. You're the only person I trust. And Sejanus really just wanted to see good things happen for the people of the district. He did not like the Hunger Games. He did not think it was right. And he was basically part of the rebellion, and he wanted to fight against that. And he confided in the one person that he thought was his best friend and got betrayed. And Snow watched him have to get hanged at the hanging tree because he basically ratted his best friend out, and then went on to like take money from the family and be like, I'm so sorry that this happened, like I can't believe it, like play dumb, and basically take the money from the boy's family and like take his place. And it's so bizarre. But I had a love-hate with Sejanus because I felt like some of the things he did were super stupid. Like, I get it that they're young, but it's like him going into the arena in the middle of the night to try to like pull out a body, like that was dumb as fuck. And like he should have known that. Like I wish he would have known there were other ways to use his money and influence to help the rebellion other than just being a fucking idiot. Like, he could have lived if he had not been friends with Snow. If he'd have been smart enough to see that Snow was actually being like a narcissistic bastard, which most of the time you don't recognize a narcissist until it's too late, but whatever, we're not even going over that. His kindness was his downfall. Period. Like, he just wanted to do everything so right and just help, and he was such a good person, and it ended up getting him killed, which is so sad. It definitely made me cry when I read it in the books because I felt connected to him as a character more than any of the other characters in the book, even more so than Lucy Gray. And I just found it so sad, but he was so dumb. Like, he had all this money and all this power, and he could have really used his influence from the inside, and he just decided to go full rebel and not really think about how he could have better served his cause, staying in the Capitol and not becoming a peacekeeper and like using his money and influence to affect change within the Capitol, like a fight from within. But whatever, I get it had to move the story along and it had to show more of Snow's evil side. But there you have it. Those are kind of the spoilery things that I wanted to chat about. Like, I want more. I really enjoyed this book, but I want more. So hopefully Suzanne Collins blesses us with more. All right, guys, if you stayed till the end, bless you. Let me know if you've read this, what you think, if you loved it, if you hated it, if you're meh about it. And yeah, thank you for hanging out with me. I'm Jessie. I make videos every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and I will see you guys soon. Bye.